Throughout human history, one thing has been a constant: crime. There are many types of crimes committed and many types of investigators who look into them. Criminals get very creative to stay ahead of the law. Find out crime doesn't pay. Join Jess Nasty as he dissects various crimes, mysteries, and disappearances.
Crime Maze.
Well. Hello. We just had one person join me on the live. I think they were listening to the intro and then they just disappeared. But, you know, this happens. But anyway, who am I? Of course, I am Jason, also known as ESTEY'S Crime Maze. Unfortunately, I didn't have success, as you can see, putting in like a crime backdrop, you know, a brick wall, or last time on my live, I was sitting in a beautiful house. It looked like grand piano, gorgeous couch, but we'll set it up next time. Thanks for joining me, everyone. I'm sure hopefully we'll be seeing people live on the chat soon, and I'll be seeing the number of viewers coming up on my live. And yeah, today I wanted to do a brief live. We won't go too long, but I wanted to discuss a certain YouTube channel out there for true crime, of course, that I believe sets himself apart from the rest in a lot of ways. I think he's the best true crime YouTube channel out there presently, and hopefully he'll stay that way. And you know who I'm referring to, my friends? I consider him a friend already, even though we've never met, but we are working together. We've been working together for a little while now. I'm a regular guest on his show. I also interviewed him. We interviewed him, that being Ellie and I, over at Ellie's place, and I put it up on my YouTube channel here, folks. None other than the incomparable, the super intelligent, the brilliant, and super dedicated. I mean, this man shows stellar dedication. I'm going to have to give him a better introduction than this next time. But really, everyone, I've got a lot of respect for this person, this YouTube creator, true crime, and I can't say enough great things about him. And it's none other than Devil's Advocates. DA, he goes by. Real name, Lee. That's right. Hello, Devil's Advocates. He's at the airport right now, apparently. And he's going to Moscow, Idaho to meet up with our buddy Joe to film. Apparently, they're going to try to do a live tonight from where the IDAHO4 happened. That's right. And that's how I met Devil's Advocates, is through the IDAHO4 case. And I'm going to tell you why, one of the many reasons why I respect Lee, the fact that we're covering the IDAHO4 case. He's got amazing guests on there, and not just me. Yes, I'm on the show too. And that's not the only reason, though, why I like Lee and why I think he's one of the best, or the best, YouTube crime channel out there. I'll give you a few reasons why I think that as we go on here. We got 1-1. One is one of the guests on our show, folks. You got to check out our show if you like true crime. 9 p.m., right? 9 p.m. Eastern, my time, 9 p.m. 1-1 says, is this live? You better believe it. 1-1 says, oh my God, I love your psyop, man. Yeah. 1-1 has always said, he calls me the psyop man. And I didn't know how to feel about Joe at first I didn't know how to feel about Joe. And he calls Joe is he's on X at State of the Deep. Okay, everyone. And I didn't know what to think or feel about Joe and Devil's Advocates. Like literally within 24, I think, or 48 hours at the most, when I talked a lot about a psyop again in my recent live, they did a whole interview over an hour talking about psychological operation psyops. And and yet I couldn't be part of it. But I get it. I get it. So as part of Devil's Advocates channel, my friends, I mean, Lee has got amazing branding. By the way, he doesn't have this show just by himself. Obviously, we have the guests, or myself, one Joe. We have the amazing, beautiful, vivacious Robin. She is the co-producer, and she's doing great work. Absolutely fantastic, great work. She comes on the lives as well. And what was I going to say, my friends? Oh, as part of Devil's Advocate show, you'll find out, my friends. Once a week, he has. I think it's called Devil's Deep Dive. Am I right? One is it Devil's Deep Dive? So he'll go. Lee will be interviewed, Devil's Advocates, with Joe. So they just do it one-on-one. They cover a wide range of political matters, and in this case, it was psyops. Defining what a psyop is, and they must have been motivated from me. They took it from me, folks, but they did a great professional slide presentation. I would have loved to do that. I've done that myself, or have had collaborated with somebody like Lee or Joe to do a whole interview on psyops. So hopefully they'll allow me to be part of that, or in a different way if it has to be a different platform. Joe's apparently saying that he wants to interview me when he gets his YouTube started, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. One says, I say psyop, man, out of love. Nothing negative at all. I know, one. Thank you, buddy. And wait till you see my shirt, man. I can't wait. I appreciate it. I like the nickname. Mickman2076 says, I like your videos. I put nothing past those people in Idaho. Great information. There are a lot of tweakers out there. Exactly. And, I got a question. Is Pav, is he a tweaker? Or is he a misinformation agent? Why do I even ask the question about the J. Embry Pavarotti with almost 30,000 subs? I think he's got, right? He's done hundreds of videos on the IDAHO4. But is he a disinformation agent? Joe suspects that he's a Fed. He gets Fed vibes from J. Embry Pav. I do too. But the reason I even question whether he's a disinformation agent, my friends, we got to be careful with some of these YouTubers. Just don't start hard and fast in a belief about somebody, right? Connect the dots. Are they the real person or not, right? Because this guy's all about, the atrocity happened. It was the Aryan family and the Aryan Knights. He goes solo. He doesn't interview it. He doesn't interview anybody. He just did one half-ass interview with A.R. Hayes. That's it. He will never interview apparently somebody like me, my friends. And yet I challenged him. Even though I'm a smaller channel. I haven't done hundreds of videos. No wonder I'm smaller than him. But I challenged him to an interview respectfully, and I challenged him to a boxing match. And this guy's even putting conditions on a boxing match to box this guy. You got to ask, my friends, why is a creator like this Embry Pavarotti, why is he going solo? Why isn't he interviewing people that may have an opposite viewpoint or bring out other ideas, other brilliant ideas about this case of the IDAHO4, my friends? You see, I think Pavarotti has shown his true colors, and I don't hate him. I don't hate him at all, my friends. I got an affinity towards this guy, but I'm also disappointed in my friends. He doesn't seem to want to be challenged. Is he lacking courage? Does he not have the balls to bring me on his show or come on my show? I want to be on his show because I want to show all his subscribers, but I'll be respectful that, hey, why isn't Pavarotti bringing up an extraction removal operation as a real possible theory that the students are alive? It was all a staged crime scene, in my opinion, my friends. Anybody can see it, right? Even though the first year, year and a half, I bought into the nonsense, I supported Jay Embry's theory at first for the first year, year and a half, or the first year, I think, or something, or several months. But then you connect the dots, my friends. There's no evidence the Aryan Knights, Aryan families actually were able to take out this hit. There's none at all. It's all staged, my friends. It's not to say the students weren't targeted. I'm not saying that, but there's no hit. One says, I did a condo closing today, and my notary was named Jay Embry, and the guy had a hat and sunglasses. Laugh out loud. Right. One, can I ask you, do you think it could be Fed vibes? I know you wear shades as part of your shtick for fun, but the fact that Jay Embry's only shown his eyes once, why does he continue wearing sunglasses? But I guess we could, people have said Jay Embry's, some people even think he's just more about entertainment, to each their own, right? But I want to go back to Devil's Advocates here, everyone. And one is on the show, like I said, with Devil's Advocates. He's one of our amazing guests. One is a former, my understanding, a former New York PD cop. Did I describe you right there in that description, job description? One former New York cop, I believe. But I really appreciate Devil's Advocates. You see, my friends, and I'm not giving up on Pav. I still hope this guy will show the balls and just have me on your show, Pav. Let's bounce our ideas off one another, dude. I'm not going to try to show you up. I'm just going to be honest. And we'll talk about extraction removal operation, and we'll talk about your theory, Pav. Let's see the real evidence in front of me, in front of your subscribers, on whether really did the Aryan family, Aryan Knights members, and did they really take out a hit? Even with surveillance all around the house? Even though it looked like a staged crime scene, we could go into the overwhelming circumstantial evidence and direct evidence, in my view, that this was a staged crime scene. There was no crime, my friends, right? Even the way they moved out all the boxes, North American Relocation Services on the boxes. Then the company goes down within 24 to 48 hours. The parent company of North American Relocation Services, as Bertie showed you, is called SIRVA, SIRVA. And yes, they move out fridges and stuff and regular moves, but they also have a Schedule 48 in which they work with the feds. Yes, my friends, SIRVA, right? They will remove government officials, valuable law enforcement assets at times, like confidential informants, my friends. And, the one thing that I believe Pav doesn't want me to ask him, but yet Devil's Advocates, to his credit, my friends, this is why one of the many reasons I admire Lee, I respect him, and Devil's Advocates, I respect One, I respect Joe and Robin on our show, because they have the courage and the wherewithal. And let's talk about Lee for a moment, who owns the show, Devil's Advocates, runs it. Lee invited me on, wanted me as a regular guest, asked me, and he lets me talk about the extraction, removal, and stage operation. It was a stage crime scene. I give my evidence for it, and I think it's overwhelming. But so Lee allows me to express that. He will interview other people with same viewpoints and also opposite viewpoints. And at times Lee and I agree on many aspects of the IDAHO4. Where Lee and I differ at this time is that I really believe these students are alive. And a lot of people are on board with that these days, my friends. A lot of people have supported my theory. And it wasn't just me getting this theory on my own, by the way. I researched. I also listened to one of, Bertie's theories he put out there, and a few others. And they are absolutely right when they do bring up that theory, even though they go on to other speculative theories about this case and about the students being murdered. But no, it's real, my friends. These students are alive, and they're protected, I believe, under the WITSEC program, baby. Federal Witness Security Program, right? The witness protection. So again, why is Pav not bringing any of this up, my friends? He wants you seemingly focused. Oh, there was an atrocity. Let's follow the FBI, CIA, and law enforcement there. What we were told a million times, that the students were stabbed to death. And and Embry, again, he's convinced his Aryan family and the Aryan Knight members did this hit. And so we're supposed to believe, Kaylee was, had her face stabbed so many times and mutilated, right? We're supposed to believe Steve G, the father, the nose was busted on his loving daughter, yet he doesn't cry or break down in any of his interviews. I mean, come on. Do you really believe this, folks, my friends? I would say no. And Xana's supposed to be stabbed, 30, 40 times. So we're supposed to believe one or more gangbangers, for some reason wanted to mutilate these beautiful women's faces as part of their unaliving and deaths, murders. And they get out clean and they do this in 8 to 12 minutes and they go in a house with major surveillance around. Come on. And yet, we're supposed to believe, my friends, if you believe the scenario, what we've been told by CIA, FBI, local law enforcement times in Moscow, Idaho, we're supposed to believe the U.S. Marshals were asleep at the wheel. They didn't know that gangbangers had it out for these girls, or would it be cartel members, or we're supposed to believe a Brian Koberger did it through corporate media. The U.S. Marshals, you don't think they would do a covert extraction removal operations to get those students out of there, my friends? I think they absolutely would, my friends, and they did. And there were undercover cops all over the neighborhoods that night, my friends. So let's use reason, logic, common sense here. That's all what I'm saying. But again, Pav, if he had me on his show, my friends, he knows that we'll have an entertaining and fun interview. That I'll be bringing this up. But does Pav not want? Is he afraid to be exposed for all his narrative that he's put out there, my friends? I believe strategic messaging at times to shape in public opinion behavior. Is that what Pav is possibly hired to do? I'm just asking the questions, folks. And by the way, 1-1 and Joe and Lee from Devil's Advocates, they know I've got a playful challenge, again with Jay Emery, challenge into a boxing match, and also a serious, but we can make it fun interview. If Jay Emery, Pav, would just show some respect, have me on your show. But one of the conditions he put on, my friends, is that he basically almost dismissed the interview completely. And for me to have any chance, I got to win the boxing match, but I'm not afraid about that. I will. I haven't trained in over 4 months, hardly at all, by the way, because I've had this serious injury here. Then I had shoulder injuries. But this serious injury, my intercostal, it's healing. So I'll be training soon, boxing, lifting weights. You'll see my physique change, hopefully on the lives on YouTube a little bit, all that good stuff. But more importantly, my friends, I'll be in tip-top shape because I hope Jay Embry and I will box. We'll raise money for charity, or at the very least, I want to. The most important thing is I want to interview this guy and him interview me. Okay, bouncing our ideas off one another on this case and telling the real truth. And we can speculate at times, obviously, because we can't concretely prove everything in this case. They've covered up so much. They've destroyed the house, right, everyone? You think the nice Aryan families really stabbed the beautiful students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xander Canoodle, Ethan Chapman, and did I say that? And Madison Mogan. You think they stabbed them and then they would cover it up, or the law enforcement would cover it up and take down the house? I don't think so. I think it's because there was no crime. There was no crime. So sure, they had to destroy the house. That's my view on it. But there are probably other reasons too. One says you need to fit in your advocate's costume. Yes. Yeah, maybe one day I'll do part 2 why I think Devil's Advocates could be the best, and I think it is the best YouTube true crime channel out there, and I'll wear maybe a devil's costume. That's brilliant, 1-1. I wish I was doing it right now. Yeah, 1-1 says Pav does not like no interviews. He doesn't do any interviews. I mean, you do hundreds and hundreds of videos, and you don't have the courage, apparently, the balls to be interviewed? Not even just by me, but how about Devil's Advocates? Although I wouldn't help but want to be on that show with Devil's Advocates. Lee, I ask you, Lee, if you ever reach out, and I don't know if you have bothered even to do it, but if you do decide to reach out to Pat, please try to arrange to have me on at least part of the interview, if not the whole thing with you guys, because I want to talk about that extraction removal operation and what the feds actually do. In other words, my friends, I would bring up USC Code 31, as Lee allows me to do time and time again, my friends. It's so important, right? I found out I'm only the second YouTuber that I know of to really bring this up. USC Code 31 WITSEC, baby. It allows the feds, and 1-1 knows this, it allows the feds, like U.S. Marshals, to stage a violent event, a crime scene. They could stage a whole violent crime scene. That means faking deaths, my friends. Yes. if a confidential informant's been compromised. They can do that. You don't think this happened with the Idaho 4? We're in 2025 now, my friends. I think I've shown most likely that it did. It did. Absolutely. There's no way those students are alive there's no way that they're dead. They are alive. They're on a beach somewhere probably. And the evidence, and Lee's going to show you some of the circumstantial evidence that I've been trying to connect, and others like Bubbly Water. She was the first one to catch it. Lee apparently is going to show the clip. This is again why he's an amazing YouTube true crime channel and the best out there at the moment. Birdie's right there close to him as well. But I can't say Birdie is as good as Devil's Advocates. You know why? Because Birdie has refused to interview me so far. Hopefully he'll change his mind. I've reached out to him many times and he backed out on 2 interviews with me. You know, he was worried about controversy or that I'm going after Jay Embry too much or some damn thing. Who knows? But I haven't given up. I respect Birdie a lot for a lot of his work and how he carries himself. But Birdie, dude, come on. I'll have even more respect for you if you do the right thing, man, in my opinion. Show the courage and have me on your show. We'll get a lot of views. We'll get a lot of engagement, I believe. There'll be controversy at times, perhaps, too. But a lot of people, they're going to support both of our viewpoints because Birdie's he's on page with me, my friends. He said he does sink his teeth more into the Whitsick angle. You better believe it. Totally makes sense. Anyway, under USC code 31, I would love to talk about this on Birdie's show, and thankfully I've talked about it on Devil's Advocate show, and I'm going to continue to do so, hopefully. Again, the feds can stage a violent event. So was a confidential informant compromised at 1122 King Road, my friends? I think we can infer reason, logic, common sense. Absolutely. As many people have talked about a confidential informant, right? Scenario, okay? Whether it be Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, these beautiful, young, vivacious, intelligent students, or Xander Canoodle, or was it even the 2 survivors, if you believe a crime even took place, but the people that were left for us to see, Madison, or what was it? Bethany Funk and Dylan Morrison, right? But I believe Kaylee Gonzalez, if I were to guess, was more likely the confidential informant living at that house. Maybe there was even more than one. Why isn't there more people on my live? I should have asked Lee and you guys to promote me to just notify audiences everywhere that I was going to go live today. There's only 3 people. What the hell? I know it takes practice. I'll have to do more lives. You just see. One I think says one problem too with losing everything off of the documents has not full substance if we believe timestamps. It just disappeared, that comment. Shit. Oh, that reminds me, my friends. If you go over to Devil's Advocates, and those of you that are already watching his show, I think you're aware of this. And Lee's brought it up. He's excellent at going over documents, my friends. Pavarotti, Jay Embry is not the only one that's good at reading the documents that have been made out public. But again, everyone, what I probably would bring up if I had the opportunity, if Pav would show the balls finally and have me on his show, what I would show folks is under USC code 31 Whitsick, guess what? The feds can do anything. They can seal all records, which we see in the IDAHO4 case, and they can fake documents. So a lot of these documents that Pav and others are reading, my friends, we can't even trust half of what is being said, what's being read, right? With these documents. Let's just keep that in mind, my friends. Because again, USC code 31 Whitsick, using national security with exemptions under the Patriot Act and prosecutorial discretion, they can do a whole show trial and fake documents, sealed documents. And we saw this, didn't we, my friends, in the IDAHO4? It was a show hearings. And they were so scared they couldn't even have a trial because of people like you true crime junkies, especially those of you that were providing truth and transparency on the IDAHO4. You wanted a trial. They couldn't have that, my friends, because the whole cover-up would be exposed even more. More truth would come out, my friends, right? I wanted that trial so bad. Brian Koberger pleading guilty. What nonsense. 115576 says, what part do you think Steve G had in the extraction? Can you explain that? Well, thanks for the question, 11. I don't even think normally of Steve G in terms of the extraction part of it. I just think he's obviously read in at this point, I believe, in my opinion, by the FBI. He knows his beautiful daughter, Kaylee Gonzalez, is alive, probably in Puerto Rico with the WITSEC program. We know the infrastructure's over there of the United States. The United States have a WITSEC program, Puerto Rico. That's a known fact. They also travel not far from Puerto Rico, apparently to Costa Rica. You know, Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogan, the rest, and Ethan Chapman and Xander Canoodle, they can all volunteer to get out of the WITSEC program. They can travel a little bit to a certain extent. The feds are protecting them. You better believe Kaylee, I believe she's probably shuffling her at times. They'll shuffle her over to Puerto Rico if the family's going to go over, you know, have a vacation there like they have in the past, like Steve G. So I'm just saying, my friends. But I think Steve G. Yeah, I think actually that is a good question. I guess Steve G. You would think he'd have to be involved in some way, either indirectly or peripherally, with the extraction removal operation. Yeah, I think he probably knew beforehand, 1-1. Certainly Christy G did, in my opinion, because remember, as I keep saying, we learned that Christy G told the public that Kaylee Gonzalez, her beautiful daughter, photobombed her the day before. As I said on Devil's Advocate show, my friends, Lee's show, and again, Pavarotti apparently doesn't want any of this information talked about. He won't interview people. But yeah, a person on Facebook told me, she said, I have two daughters roughly the same age. And she said, they have never photobombed me. She thought that was so weird. And she agreed. That shows there was probably pre-planning of this extraction removal operation. Kaylee Gonzalez knew that they were going to be extracted very soon, or possibly, or for sure, she knew that they were going to extract them. They knew the gig was up, right? That a confidential informant was probably compromised. You know, the girls may have had loose lips, drinking too much, or there could be so many different reasons why, you know, a confidential informant may have been compromised finally. And again, you had all this drug running going on, drug investigations, which has been talked about countless times. Very important, right, everyone? So, you know, Kaylee and Maddie and maybe even Ethan Zana to a certain level, they, I believe, were involved in some possibly or helping with the feds, hopefully, with drug investigations. I think that's reason, logic, common sense to infer, folks. So they were probably dealing with at times with some very dangerous people, whether it be elements of the Aryan family, Aryan Knights, as Embry likes to talk about, and others, right? Or cartel organizations in some way. I don't deny that part. Embry and I would agree to, I would say to even Jay Embry, if he had me on his show, yeah, I agree with you, Pavarotti, in the sense that the students were targeted. You know, even again, I believe they were extracted. So going by the extraction removal operation, even the fact that I believe they're alive, just the fact that we don't see them anymore and they staged the crime scene, I believe, that shows you that somebody had it out for these girls. The fact that the feds felt like they had to protect all four of those students, get them out that night, I believe, that shows you that somebody had it out, unfortunately, for the students. But my friends, it's a whole other ball game to say that hit really got carried out, because I believe it's all lies that we've been fed from corporate media. There's no evidence that the hit got carried out, as I keep saying on Devil's Advocate show, my friends, right? And on my shows and in other interviews that I've done, like with Ellie. I also did interviews with Tommy Jude at Once Upon a Crime Time, his channel. He allowed me to talk about the extraction removal operation as well, largely, which was awesome. And I keep saying, my friends, yeah, that I believe these students are alive. It was a staged crime scene. There was something else I was going to say, and I forget. One says, yeah, I have to evaluate behavior. Photobombs is hugely suspect. Yes, thank you. And guess what, one, did you know? I'm pretty sure you probably already knew this. They didn't return Kaylee's phone, according to Christy G. They never returned her electronics, the feds, right? U.S. Marshals. You're not going to give finally the phone back to the parents? How about after a year or 2 years? You're still not going to give the phone, let alone they probably don't even have her computer if she was using a laptop. Why? Because she's alive and would expose the whole thing, my friends. Isn't that reason, logic, common sense we can infer? They didn't even give the phone back to the parents. Wow. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that fantastic, man? Information? Woo. So, by the way, my friends, as I was saying earlier, Pav refuses to show you the clip. And he pumps up Bubbly Waters, rightly so, right? They're kind of friends online. He talks about some of her good work at times. But my friends, he will not show you what Lee's going to show you very soon. Devil's advocates with our guests. You know what he's going to show you? He's going to show you the clip. I wish I could show it for you right now on my live, my friends, where one of Christy G's last interviews that she did, or recent interviews, it was only, I guess, a couple months ago, right? She was sitting beside her husband, Steve G, and the beautiful Christy G. She admitted, she blurted it out, and Bubbly Waters, I think, is correct when she said, reason, logic, common sense. She's saying that she thinks that Christy didn't mean to really say this. She said, again, sometimes the parents say too much, my friends. And I believe that, again, the FBI, elements of them are pushing the parents to put out this highly charged emotional narrative that they got to try to convince a lot of the public that their lovely kids were stabbed to death. It's all true. All 4 were stabbed to death. What a bunch of horseshit, in my opinion. But anyway, Christy G, though, let it out. She said that she was talking, rambling on. She said, Maddie just bought a new house. And we know the word that she was going to finish with, house. Maddie just bought a new house, as in house, my friends. How can you buy a new house if you've been stabbed to death? She wasn't referring to the past, that if Maddie didn't die, she could have bought a new house. She didn't say that. She literally said that, referring to the future, that Maddie just bought a new house, as in right now. She just bought a new house. So apparently it is true. I've dug this up. In these WITSEC programs, some of the witness protection programs, folks, you can buy a new house and be protected by the feds. They will, again, I'm telling you, my friends, these beautiful 4 students, thankfully, they will have a chance to live low profile yet productive lives. They just won't be seen in our public, my friends, unless you know what to look for. But I don't think they're going to be online anytime soon, right? And again, though, they can voluntarily get out of the WITSEC program too, my friends. And I wouldn't be surprised in the years to come, or very soon, they will. They've been protected. I don't think anybody's after them at this point. But the feds will make that determination, not me, of course, right? April, thank you for being on here, April. Were they extracted? Yes, they were. 1-1 says, yeah, I heard that about Kaylee's phone. Very, very strange. Oh, yeah, I read that from him before. April, what's your other comment? What? No freaking way. No way. She says, what the fuck? WTF. Yes, April, sweetheart. I'm telling you, in my opinion, the circumstantial evidence is there that these students, the U.S. Marshals, had to have extracted them. They knew that they were targeted. They had surveillance all around the house. And again, most of us believe that there was a confidential informant living at 1122 King Road, most likely working with law enforcement. That only makes sense to help with the drug investigations, to help, arrest some of these Aryan family members, high-level, gangbangers and cartel members. We saw it play out, right, in Washington State shortly after the so-called crime at 1122 King Road. So whatever, all this pre-planning that the feds did, I believe, my friends, and ultimately to extract these students, it worked in their favor, folks, right? They continued the drug investigations. They continued to be able to make inroads and arrest eventually some high-level drug enforcers. Katsumomo says, hello, Estes. Hello, Wonwon. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for the acknowledgement. Kind words. Hello to you. Lisa Hedrick Lisa Hedrick /05G says, KG said in interviews earlier to Olivia, we have to get this right, not knowing they were on camera. I love it. I hope Lee might even decide to play that if we can find it. KG said in an interview earlier to Olivia, we have to get this right, not knowing they were on camera. It's all part of the cover-up, I believe, my friends. They screw up sometimes, the parents, in my opinion. In my opinion, again, my friends, I think we can infer this. It's reason, logic, common sense, isn't it? The feds, the FBI, I believe, elements of them are telling them, and law enforcement, you got to go out there, do all these interviews, I mean, what parents, by the way, does all these interviews after they lose a loved one in such a vicious way? If we, let's just play along with that. It happened. What parent is going to do all these interviews and they don't break down and cry? Christy G, who's an emotional person, beautiful woman, I think overall, but she's not crying. She acts frantic at times. Steve G acts with righteous anger, but you're not going to cry and bawl your eyes out in interviews and lose it at times with all that's transpired, what went down. Come on, folks. It's all acting. That's why, my friends, in my opinion, it's just acting. You don't buy into the psyop, man. Emotional psyop. That's all it is, in my opinion. Cats Mojo says, so sad, just realizing that tomorrow marks 3 years and we still do not have the proof of actual truth. Largely, you're right, Cats Mojo. And lacking that proof, you know what I would say to people like Pav and so many other YouTubers? I don't want to name too many names because I'd like to be interviewed by some of these people if they would show some courage. Because a lot of them, they know who I am, even though I'm not a huge channel. And hopefully they'll know me. More of them will know me because I'm also on Devil's Advocate show. But I was going to say, you know what? I'd say to Pav and all these other YouTubers that are convinced the atrocity happened, right? And Lee's allowed me to talk about it with our guests. I would say, where's the proof? Where is the real concrete proof that there was even a crime? Where's the concrete proof and the evidence that the students were stabbed to death, that they were actually killed that night? Where's the proof? And you know what the answer is, my friends? And I'm sure my guests deep down inside, they know it. And we know it from just looking, my friends. And, I'm not going to put Lee on the spot today, but he knows I bring this up. Where is the evidence? Again, there is no evidence of an actual crime scene, my friends, other than you had, the crime scene tape, right? Yeah, some of the law enforcement, they had their badges. At times, though, they didn't have their badges on. Again, they didn't treat that, my friends, that house, that crime scene, like a real health hazard. And again, I've said a million times, there would be so much blood and excrement in that house. Any nurse will tell you, my sister's a frontline nurse, it absolutely would be a health hazard, right? But again, my friends, sometimes the forensic investigators wore the whole masks, the proper PPE gear, which includes the slippers, probably, what do you call it, aprons, all that stuff, gloves. But at times they didn't. At times they didn't wear proper PPE gear, my friends. And you got to wonder why. And again, my friends, there's no evidence. There was never, I love saying this on Devil's Advocate show. Thank you, Lee, for allowing me and wanting me to express just the real truth of this case, that we never saw any body bags, my friends. And this has been talked about a lot online, but not enough YouTuber creators, I don't think, focus on this. We never saw any body bags. And you would have seen body bags, my friends. In my opinion, reason, logic, common sense. If there was a real crime scene on that November 12th, or November 13th. I think it was November 12th, wasn't it? Anyway, we would have seen body bags come out, folks, right? But the feds, they didn't have time to stage that. They could stage a little bit of this, more and more of the crime scene as the days went on, I believe. But they only had several hours, right, everyone, before all the students, they had to make the 911 call after 8 hours, by the way, delaying the goddamn thing, though. But they knew that the feds, they had to get over to the house. So they didn't have time to put fake dummies or people in a body bag, my friends, right? And we didn't see it. There were no body bags. But if they were really stabbed to death, yeah, they would have moved out body bags, right, folks? Am I not making sense? But there was nothing. And again, my friends, as I've said a million times, and Birdie said it too, a long time ago, there was no leaked raw crime scene photos to this day of that crime scene. No leaked raw crime scene photos of those beautiful students, my friends. Think about that. And why is that important? Because just like Birdie said a long time ago, and I'd love to go over this information with Birdie if he wanted in our interview, what he said, in almost every high-profile case, and I said it on Devil's Advocate show, in almost every high-profile case, you're going to get leaked raw crime scene photos, right, folks? We know this. And or leaked autopsy photos. But there's been nothing in the IDAHO4, my friends. Nothing. And by the way, before I forget, my friends, what I really like about our show, or Devil's Advocate show, with us being on and being able to discuss. We don't talk just Idaho 4. We talk a lot of Idaho 4, which I know a lot of you are into and should be because it's such a fascinating, crazy, wild case, in my opinion. But we talk about other fascinating true crime cases. Lee does amazing presentations. He puts a lot of time in. He goes through all the talking points, largely that he wants us and the guests to talk about and him on the show. And one of them, we talk about several fascinating cases as well. The Idaho 4, obviously, as we said, but also Mickey Stein's case, right, where he shot the judge, unfortunately, on camera, no less. Just a crazy, wild case with all kinds of sex going on and swinger parties and corruption within Kentucky there, just wild on very high level officials and sex in jail, apparently. And I mean, on and on we go. It's sexual harassment and man, it's crazy. But so you got that case we're covering. At times we cover the Rex Humerman case, of course, the Long Island alleged serial killer. Isn't that interesting? And what a monster, by the way, he is apparently. And we cover Luigi Mangione, right? I'm butchering his last name again. Lee, rightly so, is fascinated with that case too, and I am too to a certain extent. So we talked about that on our lives, and we'll continue to do it at times. And Lee is covering, and we are covering the what do you call it? Charlie Kirk case, right? Which is fascinating. And I show you, my friends, I believe Charlie Kirk is alive. That was an actual public extraction removal, and the rest is all staged, baby. Another psyop. Absolutely, my friends. And I got I'm probably at about 270,000 views in just over a month on a Charlie Kirk video. Went viral, baby. Over 2,000 comments. And by the way, I'd love for you guys to check me out on TikTok if you would, or would like you to if you wouldn't mind. Jason Truth Authority, if you're interested. Jason Truth Authority on TikTok. And hopefully you'll press the button and want to follow me over there. Okay? It's a lot of fun. But back to YouTube. Cat's Mojo says, why is every single thing so redacted and hidden from us? Exactly. Especially in this modern day with everyone having a smartphone and Ring security camera. So much surveillance, yet alarming lack of any. Exactly, Cat's Mojo. That's brilliant. I'll take a screenshot right now of that comment. And many of you guys and gals have left great comments today as well, including one. I am going to take a camera shot right now, or almost this second, of your brilliant comment. Sealed records, and you said the word redacted, exactly. Redacted and sealed, baby. Thank you for that. So there you go. Yeah, these cases are fascinating, especially if you like true crime, folks, and want to delve into some of these cases, And again, my friends, I have so much respect for Lee. Now, at first, I had no necessary reason to have all this respect for Lee that I did. Not that I disrespect him, but I was frustrated, as Lee brought up half jokingly in our show, because I thought just like a Pav in a way, I thought he was lacking courage or something. I didn't know why he just wouldn't. He kept, showing interest about possibly doing an interview with Ellie and I, and then he backed out, much like sort of Bernie's done, unfortunately. But to Lee's credit, Devil's Advocates, he followed through, and in a big way, man. You smashed it, Lee. You came on Ellie's show. We uploaded that to my YouTube channel right here at Estey's Crime Maze. You guys could check it out. Where Devil's Advocates, Lee and I went one-on-one. Unfortunately, I think I got blurred because it was bad internet at my sister's house, if I recall. But anyway, it was a great interview, I thought, overall, or a very good one. And Devil's Advocates, thank you, Lee. I'll say it right now. Thank you for having me on your show as a regular guest, participating with you, with your guest One, with Joe, JJ from State of the Deep on his X platform and Substack. Thank you very, very much. I'm enjoying because I'm enjoying this too, man. It's a great journey, man. It's fun, even though it's a little bit late at night at times for me. I'm used to going to bed a little bit earlier, but it's all good. It's worth it, man. And I hope we can keep it going. So, and Lee, even if something happened, I never on your show again. Hopefully that's not the case. But if it was never on your show again, I still would wish you nothing but success moving forward. Same with 1-1 Joe, the guest, Robin, of course, your co-producer, Amanda. I forget Amanda's last name. She's an amazing graphics designer. Looks like she's doing fantastic work. You guys can see all her graphics that she's done so far on Devil's Advocate show and continues to do so. She just, if you go to Devil's Advocates, my friends, tonight at 9 p.m., I'm not sure if Lee will show it tonight, but he showed it last night where Amanda's got cool, really cool, funny graphics. They're hilarious and really detailed. She shows each of us almost like a superhero because Lee says, we're sort of advocates, right? Calls himself devil's advocates. So we're advocates. And Lee's trying to figure all this out, because part of it, he knows that, he wanted to go with a more serious true crime after dark show. Yes, Lee likes to swear at times. He's got a filthy mouth, but that's okay. And so us guests, we can swear, we can talk the way we want within reason, and it's fun that way. And he just knows that he's not going to get, unfortunately, a lot of Christians necessarily to stay on the show. Some of them will, but other Christians may be offended, and that's the way it goes. It is what it is, right? But Lee's got a wonderful personality, hilarious personality. He's super witty. Again, he's super sharp, brilliant. I understand he's a former teacher, worked with IT in the IT department, so he knows what he's doing. Kirk is, and I respect the fact that, especially that he was a teacher, teaching others. Kirk is definitely operation. Exactly, 1-1. Thank you, 1-1, especially coming from 1-1. I really respect that because he's former cop and he knows a lot about these operations, and especially when he's looked at hard at these cases. So I guess 1-1, and again, and him and I are on the same page, which is wonderful. We think it was an operation with Kirk, and I think 1-1 was probably leaning towards what I am. I won't speak for him, but I think he's leaning towards that Kirk is probably alive. It was a public extraction. They had a trapdoor underneath. There's particular YouTuber shows you all the angles. I agree with him. It looks like a trapdoor underneath. When Kirk was shot by, I think it was probably a pellet, it wasn't a high-powered rifle bullet. He just goes down the trapdoor. The feds can do this, my friends. And the guy they lifted, I hope Lee will show this one day when we really get into Kirk, my friends. And I will get the timestamps if Lee wants me to. I can hopefully find the timestamps of the angles. When they lifted the guy out of, remember, Kirk was out of view. The guy they lifted had no Freedom logo on his shirt. Remember, Kirk had a Freedom logo, my friends, that day. And Kirk never apparently wore white before. He just happens to wear a white shirt with all the blood squirting. It's all theater, my friends. He probably had a blood pack, his picture show underneath the shirt. Sure as hell looked like in tubes. Anyway, the guy they lifted wasn't even Kirk, my friends. It couldn't have been. He didn't have a Freedom logo on his shirt. Kirk had a Freedom logo when he was alive in front of the public, right? And the guy they lifted, you'll see, my friends, had no blood on his shirt. So no Freedom logo, no blood on the shirt, no blood on the people that picked him up after carotid artery is shot and all this nonsense we were supposed to believe. And no blood going to the vehicles, my friends. Come on. And I interviewed Ellie, my friends. I'd love to talk about this on Devil's Advocate show again. Or I don't know if I've said this. Ellie's sister's a professional makeup artist. And you know what she said and believes? She wholeheartedly is convinced that it was so phony the way they did it. So phony. And she believes they had latex on Kirk's neck that you can tell. Latex. So I don't know how that plays out and exactly how it's supposed to discharge with the blood pack. That's all beyond my expert. I don't have any expertise in this, but I trust somebody like Ellie's sister, who is a professional makeup artist. If she tells you it's phony and that Kirk had latex on the neck, which we know they can do and do to people at times, folks, I trust her opinion, and it's true then, right? It's phony as hell, and we could see it. 1-1 says, I think Kirk is strongly alive. That blood shown looked like oil, AI crap. Blood pouring on his shirt, and then his shirt is clean. What the hell? Exactly, 1-1. Thank you for that comment and insight as well. And again, speaking of insight, my friends, I've really been impressed many times with 1-1's insights, as well as Joe's times, of course, his insights as well, and of course, Lee, Devil's Advocates, and even Robin, the co-producer. They're all showing great insights, I believe, at times in these cases. Well, many times. And hopefully they think I'm showing some very good, if not great insights as well at times. And that's what it's all about, right, everyone? We're trying to dig in and provide insights, interesting speculation at times, because there's huge cover ups in these cases by and large, right, folks? So, sometimes you do have to speculate. But we got to put pressure, my friends. If we really want truth and transparency, let's put pressure on some of these elites out there and disinformation, misinformation agents and really tell it like it is. For example, was there an extraction removal operation? At least Lee, Devil's Advocates, even though he may not be 100% on board with that yet, but I think I'm starting to persuade him. Lee asked the question, and I think he said, it very well could be possible. I mean, but you get a lot of these YouTube creators on the IDAHO4, and they don't even bring it up as a possibility. They don't even want to discuss it. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? At least Bernie, to his credit, he brings it up. At least Bubbly Waters, to her credit, she actually caught, again, what Christy G said, that Maddie just bought a new house, as in house. And Bubbly Waters' first thought, as she said on that video, you'll hear Bubbly Waters say it, maybe Lee will play it, is that Bubbly Waters was convinced, oh my God, yeah, Maddie is in witness protection, it sounds like. She's got to be in witness protection. If Christy G has said that, yeah, you're right, Bubbly Waters. And I hope you don't segue off that. Stay focused on the extraction removal operation, because that's what it was. All 4 students are alive, baby. Nobody was killed. And that's good news. Again, these are my opinions, but I think the facts back it up largely, my friends. Cats Mojo says, you all make for a superb panel of brilliant minds. Thank you, Cats Mojo. I'm taking a screenshot because Lee's too busy right now, Devil's Advocates, to be on this live today, and he knows I'm pumping him up, but rightly so. So I'm going to show this comment, hopefully, to Devil's Advocates, Cats Mojo. I think he would like to read that, hopefully. That we all make for superb panel, brilliant minds. That's very nice of you. Very kind of you. Thank you. April XS9TK. April says, why all the psyops all of the sudden, one after the other? Well, April, that's a great question. You see, I think part of it is because there's a lot of reasons. I think part of it with technology nowadays, the feds are trying to do some of these hideous psyops at times. This means elements of the government, really the deep state. They're trying to pull these psyops, and they're doing by trying to accomplish these psyops. There's many things they're trying to accomplish, right? They're trying to they'll take advantage. They'll piggyback off it. They'll do data mining, right? Lee knows how this works with IT, his IT background, interesting IT background. They'll do data mining. They'll collect our data, different people's, the public's data, and they'll do analytics. So they'll see which way are people moving to, right? Are they shifting towards certain people that are leaders? Which people are they shifting to on YouTube, and Rumble and different platforms, Facebook? What are they talking about? What do they believe in the Kirk case? What do they believe in the IDAHO4, right? So they just collect all that data and they try to see if they can move somewhere. But again, my friends, largely these are the intelligence agencies, CIA, elements of them, elements of the FBI. And unfortunately, my friends, the way this system seemingly is built over the decades, again, elements, not all of the CIA are bad, so they never have to be mad at me. And please don't censor me, folks. Some CIA are very good people. But largely, we know the system is out of control and corrupt, unfortunately. And we know, therefore, and really how the CIA was created from the get-go, I would argue, and elements of FBI as well, their mandate at times is to lie, deny, and deceive at the expense of American taxpayers. And you better believe that means not just in America. Hint, hint. Okay? That's the reality. So, my friends, by providing more truth and transparency and talking about psyops, for example, psychological operations, what it is, how it relates to true crime. Lee did a great job, by the way, on his interview with Joe. You guys could check it out. They talked about psyops, and Lee brought it home, how it relates to true crime at times, how they dehumanize. If you can dehumanize someone, as Lee said, right? If you can make someone look like a monster, not as a real person, then you can accomplish just about anything. You can make like a Brian Kohlberger Lee, that's what Lee, I think, was referring to. He didn't say names, but we can make Brian Koberger look like a monster. That's what the CIA corporate media we saw, right, folks? And a lot of these creators at times, even Facebook groups, I noticed did this, and YouTube creators at times. But so Brian Koberger, they make him look like a monster. They're able to make Luigi Mangione, whether he's guilty or not, make him look like a total monster. Obviously, he is a monster if he did shoot the CEO. But I don't think there's real proof that he did it yet. But again, my friends, so as Lee said, if um, you can make them even accomplish anything, even murder, get away with murder, because you're not looking at them as a human being. And that's what a psyop largely does. It manipulates your perceptions, folks. That's what it's designed to do, right? And it's there to target either individuals, you could target certain groups, organizations, even governments. And we'll get into more psyops again in the future, folks. And again, I guess I should be glad that Lee, Devil's Advocates, and Joe, I think they took the lead from me. They knew I was talking psyops in a big way and defining it, going through the legal definition, adding my own flavor as well, and different information. They took my information at times and they ran with it. And to their credit, they did a great interview, professional interview, discussing psychological operations and social engineering aspect of it all, and going through Nazi Germany, real history, folks. Once we understand psyops and how it's used throughout history, right? We can have a fun time again relating it to true crime as well, which is our topics that we discuss, especially on Devil's Advocate show with the guests. Um, this is so important, folks. It's going to change our society so much for the better, I believe, so positively. It's literally when more of us understand psyops and how it's used, my friends, how the government at times use it, CIA, the intelligence community, the deep state. I'm telling you, it can only help us to ultimately help us sustain a culture and society to sustain ethical leadership, because we're gonna be able to expose these dirty players more. And that's what you gotta do, my friends. You got to show the crowd the dirty player. I have a whole book on that about showing the crowd the dirty player. If you can do that, the ethical leader will always survive, my friends. But if you don't, the unethical leader is in a or the unethical leader will win, right? Because the ethical leader is going to be in a real conundrum if you can't show the whole crowd the dirty players. I mean, this goes back to history, my friends. Look at the Roman times. You've got to expose the dirty players, whether it be, in my opinions, the Tucker Fucker Carlson. He's CIA. I mean, come on, folks. He'll give you a little bit of truth here and there, but he's trained to lie to you and deceive you, my friends, in my opinion, right? Because he's CIA. He told you he wanted to be CIA. In my opinion, he's absolutely CIA. He's former Fox News reporter. I mean, come on. For mainstream media? So again, everyone, and his father was CIA. He was in charge of one of the biggest disinformation methodology organizations in the United States. And again, if Tucker ever heard me, he don't hate on me, Tucker Fucker Carlson. I don't hate you, dude. I'm calling at you for who you are, I believe. You're a misinformation, disinformation agent. You know who you are. You're CIA, but you're still a nice guy. I'm sure we could have a good time discussing over a beer sometime. Maybe I'll get that chance one day with Tucker Fucker Carlson. You never know. But I definitively call him Tucker Fucker Carlson. Doc Shiva says the same thing, my friends. But again, and Tucker Fucker Carlson knows, people like me and the public that want to help change the world with people, amazing people like you, we got to call these people out and tell the truth, my friends, right? And the organization that I believe represents. And again, they can be nice people, folks, but at the same time, they can be very evil, my friends, what they're doing at times, right? Because again, their job is largely to lie, deny, and deceive. And their job, by the way, my friends, I'm sorry, I'm getting off true crime for a moment, but their job is to delay truth, right? Even with the IDAHO4, some of these true crime cases, my friends, you watch, and this is what we're trying to dig up on Devil's Advocate show. But over time, we're going to get more and more truth on the IDAHO4, hopefully. And that's what Lee's trying to do. And on these other true crime cases, my friends. But, huge false flag events like 9/11, it was designed to delay truth. Naturally, over 10, 15 years and 20 years, we're getting more and more truth of 9/11, right? What that was all about, to inject power in the Middle East, who did it, the Mossad. But many researchers, or the general public, they didn't know a lot of the truth of 9/11 and it's understandable for many, many years, right, folks? So delayed truth is deadly. I said it on Devil's Advocate show, my friends, and I would like to say it on a big platform also like Birdie, is to say, I learned from Dr. Shiva, who learned from Alan McDonald, a famous U.S. astronaut. Remember the Columbia, I believe it was the Columbia catastrophe, everyone. Was it the Columbia? I hope I got it right. But remember that shuttle that blew up and it killed all those beautiful innocent astronauts, great American patriots. Alan McDonald, before he died, he said the most important thing in life is to tell the truth at the right time. And my friend Dr. Shiva, the great Dr. Shiva, with a PhD from MIT, 4 degrees, trying to change the world with others, trying to start a bottoms-up movement for truth-free health. He expanded on that. He said the most important thing in life is tell the truth at the right time to the right people to affect change. Is basically what he said, and I totally agree. But my friends, the CIA at times, FBI, some of the intelligence community, the deep state, the financial global predators, the so-called elites, right? They don't have an interest in that, my friends. Their mandate, because they want profit, power, they often want power, profit, control. And part of that system is designed to delay truth, folks, right? And they don't often want, unfortunately, authentic, genuine leaders. But we got to push for it, folks, and we can do it. We can win. We absolutely can. I think in some ways we are winning. Let's be hyper vigilant, protecting our human rights and fundamental freedoms. Sorry, I got off true crime there at times, folks. But I hope it was some valuable information, and maybe, hopefully, some of that was inspiring. I don't know. Cat's Mojo says, PSYOPs has always been in the background of our history. Exactly, Cat's Mojo. And just like I've talked about in many of my videos, and Lee and Joe talked about it in their stellar interview together recently, just several days ago, the military often does PSYOPs, right? It's used to usurp confessions. And if Joe allows, I want to get into the 3 different types where there's strategic, operational, and tactical. But anyway, thank you, Cat's Mojo. The Space Shuttle Challenger, that was the one that blew up. And Alan McDonald, my friends, just real quick, as Dr. Shiva knows, he didn't sign off on the launch because he knew the O-rings were never tested at those cold temperatures. And he was put enormous pressure on NASA were put enormous pressure on him to sign off at their launch. He knew it was too dangerous. He said, no way. He had so much integrity and courage, my friends. And that's why I respect somebody like this Alan McDonald, who's no longer with us. He passed on, he died. But he said, again, the most important thing in life is telling the truth at the right time. He was a testament to that. He lived his life that way, my friends. And I hope more of us can do that, to live our lives that way. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but let's try to live, for the most part, telling the truth at the right time, the best way we can. 1-1 says, Esty, could you explain Dylan and Bethany's part of the extraction? Why weren't they extracted? Well, 1-1 again. Isn't that a $500 million question? I would be dishonest if I told you I know why. I guess, and I'm trying to figure out even if I could speculate on why. That's a great, interesting question. I hope we can maybe, 1-1, I hope you'll ask me that on Devil's Advocate show, okay? And any other interviews on any other platforms that I do, okay? For example, if I got on Birdie's big platform as well, I hope you'd ask me that question so we could talk in front of the audience, especially extraction. Yeah, anything to do with extractions. But that's a tough one. I guess 1-1, I don't know if you would agree with this speculation. I think we can only surmise that for some reason, Dylan and Bethany, they weren't the targets. They were not in danger. And the U.S. Marshals knew that, right? And for all we know, maybe Bethany and Dylan, when it really comes to the truth of that night, maybe they weren't even in the house at that time. They probably were, but I don't even think we can confirm that, right? There's been so many lies and cover-ups. But if they were in the house, and they very well may have been, again, they probably weren't involved in helping the feds with the drug trafficking and dealing, therefore, with dangerous people often. That's only sort of what my speculation is there. But I bet Kaylee and Madison were at times. And let's say, even if Maddie wasn't a confidential informant and compromised, even if Maddie had nothing to do with some federal drug investigations, or being informant at times, dealing maybe with Aryan family, Aryan Night members, or cartel organizations. Remember, the U.S. Marshals, they're not going to get it just Kaylee out, right? They would get Maddie out too, because they're like this and they're in the same room. Wouldn't you guys agree to that, and gals? So, and Ethan Chapman, the U.S. Marshals, who knows? They may not have known exactly that Ethan was going to be there that night, because he doesn't sleep there most of the time, right, folks? He comes and goes. So maybe they knew also, they had to get Zen. They knew she was in danger. So a lot of speculation there, but definitely the U.S. Marshals knew all four were targeted, and Dylan and Bethany they were not targeted by anybody. They weren't in danger. They didn't put their lives apparently in the same sort of danger, so they could be left in the house unscathed. They didn't need to be extracted. Does that make sense, 1-1? I hope so. If you have any other theories to add, please feel free on this live or with Devil's Advocates when we go live, future lives. Cat's Mojo, were they protected? Are you asking about Bethany and Dylan? Sharon Costu says, I used to argue with this guy constantly, but look, I'm here, Jason. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it. Sharon, have you checked out my buddy's channel with 1-1 Joe as the guest and Robin, the co-producer? Have you checked out Devil's Advocate show? And he's had lawyers apparently on his show too in the past. Because it's a great show, I think. Sharon, I know it sounds like, just like a lot of people, and I get it, you started hard and fast in a belief about someone, and that is Pav. And I'm just telling you, Sharon, be careful, because, and I got suckered in too. Not that Pav, I'm not saying he's evil or anything, although I'm disappointing this guy so far. And again, we got to ask, are some of these people misinformation agents, I believe. But Sharon, if you start hard and fast in a belief about something or someone, it's very difficult to turn yourself in another direction or stop your belief. That's a fact that psychologists will tell you. Certain psychologists, at least, that know about this stuff, right? That's a fact. And so I would just ask you, Sharon, keep an open mind. Try to connect the dots. Ask yourself, really, when Pav keeps trying to seemingly convince you that an atrocity happened, say, really? Did an atrocity happen? Well, how about Jason from Estes Crime Maze and a few others have shown you there's no evidence that a crime even took place. But Pav's not telling you that. He's not telling you, well, wait a sec, there were no body bags. We would have seen body bags come out, wouldn't you? We would have seen leaked crime scene photos come out of the crime scene, of the student stabbed to death with all the blood. You better believe there'd be leaked crime scene photos, either from the students. Remember, there were all kinds of students traipsing in and out of the house. They were all around the house, the neighborhoods, right? And then you got corporate media. Sharon, they never took any crime scene, legitimate, genuine photos of those students dead. Nothing. Nothing. And no body bags. And by the way, as I've said many times in my videos, folks, and I'll continue to say it, but again, you're not going to hear this from the likes of Pav and quite a few others. What was going to say? Oh, yeah. Nobody else really says this. But when you have an extraction removal operation, again, think USC Code 31 WITSEC, where the feds can legally stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised. They can legally delete someone, and they can fake deaths, okay? But if that's the case, if this happened, then you're never going to see a public open casket ceremony. Think about that. Did we see an open public casket ceremony for the IDAHO4? Right? The answer is no. Now you could say, oh, it's just a coincidence. You know, they had to cremate the people are saying, well, they had to cremate the students, Jason, because they were stabbed to death. They were mutilated. So they're not going to have an open casket. Okay. You might buy into that, I suppose. Maybe. But I think that's really far-fetched. I don't think any gangbangers would have had a motive. I don't think they would mutilate their faces. Are you kidding me? No. And so, my friends, it's not just a coincidence, I don't believe, right? and again, it's very sus, isn't it? They cremate. You believe we're supposed to believe Kaylee Madison were cremated and Xander Canuto, and my understanding is Ethan Chapman, right? His family were the only ones, but they had a private funeral service. It certainly wasn't an open public casket ceremony. And we can go to Charlie Kirk, my friends. Remember, I think this woman's completely evil, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. Erica Kirk, she's showing her true colors. She's at the casket, right? And we're supposed to believe she's kissing real hands of Charlie Kirk. Do you really believe that? Even again, Ellie's sister, who's a professional makeup artist, I believe she said it's so fake. There were no hair follicles. It was probably a dummy. And why would you even release this private, beautiful moment? Why would you put that on your Instagram to the world? I mean, it makes no sense. Unless, in my opinion, unless it's all staged, right? That wasn't Kirk in the casket, in my opinion, folks. So there you go. Katz Mojo says, yes, where Dylan and Bethany protected. Yeah, I'm sure Dylan Bethany probably did have protection on some level from law enforcement. Again, my friends, I think everybody at 1122 King Road that were living there or there, and even Ethan Chapman, maybe to a certain degree, even though he didn't really live there, but he was dating Xander Canuto. But I think they all, and Dylan and Bethany, I think they were all protected, to some degree by the feds, right? Why would they be, folks? Why? I give credit to the feds where it's due and the U.S. Marshals and or FBI because they protected these students. They knew they had to protect those students, my friends. They knew exactly largely what was going on in the neighborhoods and in the house and that night. So you better believe they did a big operation, very covert largely, to get those students out there. So when you got guys like Pav showing you the people, out front, all very sus, largely guys smoking a cigarette, pacing back and forth, going into the car out front, the night of, and slamming the door, and a person walking to the dumpster, they call dumpster guy. Yeah, it's all sus, but it doesn't mean they're actually Aryan family, Aryan Night members that were able to go in and do a hit. No, that operation, most of those people, if not every one of them, I would argue, my friends, reason, logic, common sense, were the feds. That was U.S. Marshals, folks. Yeah, and they were getting ready to try to stage this stuff to get the students out, and then again, more or less stage afterwards. But again, they didn't have time to put people in body bags to actually do a really cool stage crime scene that way. That's why we didn't see body bags, my friends, right? And yet you would have seen body bags eventually if those students were killed, in my opinion. I think there's reason. Many people said it. Oh yeah, one says, what do you think is the overall plan with Erica? I'm really interested to see, my friends, what they are going to do with Erica. You see, my speculation, a lot of people think, oh, they're going to try to push her to go into politics. Well, I think the elites would love to do that. Some of these financial global predators, as I like to call them, and or deep state, right? And elements of CIA, in other words, the intelligence community. But I think they have a real problem. And what that problem is, the obvious, that it's come out, and I give credit to whoever those YouTubers was and maybe a TikToker as well. They showed you at first months ago that Erica Kirk created a non-for-profit at 17 years old called Romanian Angels. And it looks like it was sex trafficking involvement there by different people, organizations. She was the liaison. Apparently, she was delivering young girls primary to military bases. And I'm not going to go any farther than that on this live on this. I've discussed a little bit more in past videos. But think about that, my friends. Why did, and it's on Erica Kirk's Venmo page. Why does she have, I think it was a general of the U.S. military on her Venmo page. But again, most U.S. military, my friends, again, they do amazing. Absolutely. These are amazing soldiers. They protect our human rights and fundamental freedoms. They don't just protect soldiers largely in the United States. They have to protect us here in powerful country, Canada, all around the world. And I love our special forces, United States and Canadians too. And I may know a thing or two about some of these guys and gals, what they do. It's absolutely amazing what they do. And I respect and admire the Army, the Navy. I mean, I can't give enough credit to all of our U.S. military and Canadian military by and large. So we never should Same with our cops and law enforcement, my friends. Even some of the intelligence community, them hard up on some of these people, and rightly so. But by and large, my friends, do not generalize, particularly law enforcement, your cops, your police, FBI. Well, should I say, let's stick to police. Don't generalize about your cops, your police, and military, particularly U.S. military and Canadian military. Please do never generalize that they're all bad and evil just because you see, certain pockets of corruption and evildoers at times in these organizations. Please, because that's a wrong message, my friends. And yet, some of these global financial predators, they want you to generalize that in some of these countries, like the amazing countries we live in, that, oh, all of our cops are fascists and they're bad and you got no rights. It's all a psyop, my friends. Most of our cops, they want to protect our rights. They want to do a great job. They want to protect our human rights. They want to protect us, right? They want to protect their families. So, I mean, come on. Same with our military, my friends. But again, what was going on with Erica Kirk with this non-for-profit of Romanian Angels? Was it sex trafficking? I'll just pose that question. A lot of people have talked about it, right? I think you know the answer. And just as evidence of that, possibly, there was a woman who came on YouTube. I'll never forget this. She never showed her face, and I can understand why. And she was probably Romanian herself, or she definitely was European. And she said, the Romanian authorities, or she said, she claimed that 86,000 or was 87,000 children in Romania disappeared. Think about that, my friends. And if you have questions, here's another question about Erica Kirk, my friends. Be very careful with somebody like this, because the Romanian authorities kicked her ass out of Romania. Yeah, apparently they kicked her and her organization, non-for-profit, out of Romania. Why? You've got 86,000 children that have disappeared from Romania. That might be a good enough reason. Not saying Erica Kirk is responsible for all 86,000 disappearing, but then apparently there were articles written in Romania about organs. What this big, huge business of organs being, taken from innocent victims and young children and being sold. I mean, it just on the black market. It's evil. Yeah, my friends, a lot of evil stuff going on at times, right? And just hideous. And then what was I going to say? Yeah, and then again, you have Erica Kirk, apparently a liaison for delivering girls to military bases. And as a black guy said on YouTube, he's got a big YouTube channel. I won't name him right now. He said, "I delivered to military bases, and the women aren't around their husbands. I won't talk about the men, in any negative way right now. But he said, what are you delivering girls?" He said so many words. Why are you delivering young girls? I don't know how old they were, how young exactly, but you're delivering them to military bases? I mean, come on. Anyway, so those are the things, some of the things I found out about Erica Kirk, and millions of people know this now. So how are they going to push her out into politics? I don't know. I'm sure hopefully there's good traits about Erica Kirk. I've never met her, so I can't say one way or another, but we can just look at some of her actions apparently in the history of her. There's a lot of questions there, my friends. And is she really evil? Is she an evil person at times? I'm not going to say yes or no. You guys can decide. She's certainly a fascinating woman on some levels. And then she has a non-for-profit. Why are you marrying somebody else that also has a non-for-profit? Is this just like one big intelligence sort of operation and a money scam? We know there's a lot of money involved with Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk. That's part of it, I'm sure. Probably a lot of money scamming and certain people making a lot of money. Yeah. And then, of course, Erica Kirk's family, her parents are tied in with Department of Defense. I mean, anyway, I don't want to go on anymore about Erica Kirk, but thanks for the question, folks. Very interesting. One says, got a phone ringing here. I'm going to end this live soon, folks, but one says, and if they were aware of drug cartel or Aryan Nation, of course, they would protect the house. Yes, the feds would have absolutely been aware of the drug cartels or Aryan Nations and so they would have protected the house. Absolutely, one, right? And you're a former cop. You better believe it. And I think that's exactly what we saw the result of. Those students disappeared, all four. but they were not stabbed to death. They were not killed, therefore. They were extracted under the cover of darkness, baby. Unacknowledged special access project program that was underway and pre-planned some of it, right? Yes, sir. Kaylee probably knew it was about to happen. She photobombed her mom the day before. And again, Christy G said, Maddie just bought a new house, as in house. So either Maddie's still in WITSEC program or she may have voluntarily is out of WITSEC program. They're probably well protected in places like Puerto Rico. Who knows? Maybe they're in Costa Rica and voluntarily went to Costa Rica, no longer in the WITSEC program. I have no idea. All I know is, my friends, they're protected and they got a lot of money. In my opinion, if I'm right and they were extracted, the money that Steve G's going to get, you better believe a lot of that money, in my opinion, to Steve G and Christy G, it's naturally going to go to Keely's new lifestyle. Or I'll pose that as a question. Is it? Do you think? I think so. Probably. But I could be wrong. I'll say maybe for legal. I have to say legally, but maybe not. But no, I think a lot of that money probably is more likely going to Keely and Maddie so they can have a nice profile. So, but the only reason I get mad, therefore, at Steve G and Christy G, my friends, is they're playing the wool over our eyes. You know, they keep lying to us. So it's up to us to figure all this out. I guess, you know, Christy G and Steve G, to their credit, they have reasons to lie, right? You know, again, their daughter had to be extracted. They'll hardly ever be able to see her again. Very seldom. Hopefully they'll see them maybe once or twice a year. We keep track if we want to where they vacation, hint, hint. But seriously, so, you know, but it's up to us, therefore, my friends, to understand a lot of this money that you donate to Krista G and Steve G, we got to ask, I think, is that going to Kaylee and Maddie's new lifestyle? Maybe Xana to a certain extent as well, and Ethan Chapman, right? Again, my friends, we don't have to believe, I believe they're lies. I think they've lied to us a lot. And the biggest lie is saying that they were stabbed to death, and Steve G saying that Kaylee's nose was busted. I certainly hope not. And I don't believe that, my friends. I never did. I just, the first year I did believe that they were stabbed to death. I believed a lot of this nonsense from corporate media, CIA, the law enforcement at times there in Moscow, Idaho. But then when you start to connect the dots, my friends, and use reason, logic, common sense, and particularly, I believe, when you look that there was surveillance around the house, right? And look at legally what the feds do at times, U.S. Marshals, and what they can do legally. Again, USC Code 31 WITSEC. They could stage a violent event if a confidential informant's been compromised. Yeah. So there you go, my friends. And again, they have exemptions with prosecutorial discretion and under the Patriot Act. And look at the prosecution in this case, my friends. They were all in on it, I believe, right? We caught them in lies, I believe. And some of the people, you know, and then we got Brett Payne. He got caught in lies. One of the cops there and charged with the investigations. I believe Ann Taylor, the defense team, I believe they were in on this show trial, in my opinion. I believe, in my opinion, just like the prosecution, they largely knew that this is all fake, that the students were extracted, they're live, they're out of the country, they're safe and sound. And so they just put on a show trial. And again, my friends, USC Code 31 WITSEC, those are some of the things they can do. And that includes redacting documents if they want, sealing records, okay? But again, people like Pavarotti Jambry, as far as I know, he doesn't tell you this stuff. I know he doesn't tell you about USC Code 31. He did a video to his credit on the WITSEC program that told you certain aspects of the WITSEC program, but it didn't get into the nitty gritty of what really went down in IDAHO4 and what the feds could do. I believe, in my opinion, staging a violent event, right? They can stage deaths. Hello. So they can pretend that all 4 students are killed and try to make us believe that. Cat's Mojo. Who really knows where the money we donate, so-called charity organizations, really go for the actual cause? Exactly. Cat's Mojo. Unfortunately, that's true to a large extent a lot of times, right? 1-1 is still a cop, Amanda says. All right, 1-1. Congratulations, dude. Still being a cop, man. Protecting our human rights and fundamental freedoms, particularly your U.S. citizens there. Yeah, man. Well done. Oh, by the way, everyone, I forgot to ask you near the beginning of my live, so I'll at least ask you and remind you at the end of my live. First, I'll say, if you think I have value perhaps to share with humanity? Because I get off true crime at times, even in these lives, and I'll get into politics a little bit, or even though it can relate to true crime politics with psyops and stuff. But um, I segue into different stuff. But no, seriously, if you think I have some value to share with humanity, and or if you just enjoy my videos, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel at Estes Crime Mates. Let's take this channel to a whole other level. Thank you, Lee, by the way, Devil's Advocate, so much for helping promote my channel. You've helped me get a lot of new subscribers. Really appreciate it. I want to thank Ellie very much as well for creating me this intro. I hope a lot of you like it. Maybe eventually I will change the intro, but thank you so much, Ellie, for putting your time and patience in creating me this intro, and for our interviews, for providing truth and transparency on the IDAHO4 as much as you could, and interesting speculation in our interviews. And we interviewed Devil's Advocates as well, I believe. So thank you, Devil's Advocates, again, for helping me get new subs and all that good stuff, and for inviting me on your show to be a regular guest. It's been great. I hope we continue. And by the way, everyone, hit the bell icon to be notified for future videos. Apparently, this all helps with the algorithms, okay? And as well as the algorithms, hit that bell icon, and you also get to be notified for future videos. And again, feel free to leave me a comment. I read them. I'll especially read them when the live is done here, folks, tonight or tomorrow. Go through them, and I'll probably hit the thumbs up on many of your comments from my phone, okay? And yeah, and leaving me a comment also helps with the algorithms, getting those videos out ultimately to you guys and gals, from my understanding. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. We got 14,000 views, or sorry, 14,000 people on the live, because it says 14. I'm joking. 14 people, but that's all good. Got to start from somewhere. It's 14 amazing people that chose, many of you in your busy schedules perhaps, to come on my live today, listen about the IDAHO4. You listened about some other true crime cases today and my takes a little bit, and you listened to me genuinely, I believe, Devil's Advocates, and rightly so, is one of the best YouTube creators out there. Now we got 16,000 people on my live. 16, just joke. But seriously, thank you so much for being here again. Devil's Advocates, Lee, one of the best true crime channels out there, if not the best. And I've listed a couple reasons why I believe he's the best true crime channel out there, my friends. Again, Amanda's doing amazing graphics for his channel. So many things that are helping his channel. And Lee himself, more importantly, or just as important, he's brilliant. He's got a great sense of humor. He's got amazing guests with super sense of humor, and they're very intelligent, and they're contributing so amazingly. We got one as one of the guests. We got Joe from State of the Deep, and he's on. You guys can find him on X. And by the way, 1-1, now I got even Joe, I think, calling me too, Psyop Man. And we got the amazing Crystal as well, the beautiful Crystal. She's co-producing, helping Lee on this channel, making it such an amazing platform, true crime channel, right? So Lee, I'm proud of you, dude. We're proud of you for what you've accomplished. You had another partner apparently that backed out when you first created this channel to go ahead, but I think you're more than making up for it, hopefully, especially inviting me now as a regular guest. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, thanks, Lee. I wish you nothing but success going forward, dude. I think you seem to be overall having a blast as well. I hope you continue to overall have fun. Sure, there'll be times where we get tired, especially somebody at your level on this channel, and especially when you're trying to just accomplish a lot. I get it. I can only imagine, the effort that it takes, and dedication and persistence. But I hope that hopefully you'll want to, at least for a while, continue this, and we'll do the best we can supporting you. I'm sure, and the audiences hopefully will do their best supporting you, Lee. So support Devil's Advocates, my friends. Please subscribe to his channel, hit the bell icon to be notified for his future videos, and then seeing me hopefully a lot of times as guests with 1-1 and Joe and Robin. And feel free to leave comments for Devil's Advocates if you feel like it too, of course, folks. And for me too on my channel. Thank you. We're all in this together. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, just be careful again with some of these YouTube personalities, and especially ones that have a massive channel and they don't do interviews. To me, those are huge red flags, and we got to ask the hard questions. You know, are some disinformation. You better believe the feds are going to have certain misinformation, disinformation agents. Without naming names right now, folks, I mentioned some names today as possibly at that, but you gotta want the feds are going to put some of them out there, my friends. And again, especially at this stage of the game, when you've done hundreds of videos and you don't interview somebody that is connecting the dots, being interviewed. I've been interviewed by other people, thankfully, at times, and I hopefully can do more interviews with different people. Um, but, and again, for example, Lee, Devil's Advocates, he's got the courage and the balls, man. He's got cock swagger. Excuse my language. He's got real cock swagger. He's interviewed me and actually wants me as a regular guest. And he's lets us talk about me, the extraction removal operation theory and other theories for that matter, but especially the extraction removal. So Lee's done his part, in my opinion, folks. But when you get, again, huge YouTubers, especially that do not do that, they do not interview people with perhaps an opposite viewpoint and trying to connect the dots. I don't think that's right. If you're really about truth and transparency, you better interview some people, you know, like me, in my opinion. But, and by the way, I give credit again to Tommy Jude at Once Upon a Crime Time. He's interviewed me. I've been on his show many times in the past too. Thank you, Tommy, in the past for the one-on-one interview on the extraction removal stage operation, showing no evidence for a real crime scene, in my opinion, no evidence that those students were killed. And I even conversed with Birdie briefly on his show, just very briefly. And so I appeal one more time, Birdie, one more time today. I appeal to you, buddy. Have me on your show. Give me a chance, dude. Let's talk backstage. We'll obviously, discuss what topics we're going to discuss to do with the IDAHO4, for example. I think, bring a lot of, I know I could bring a lot of truth and transparency on PSYOPs, how it relates to true crime, just like Lee did briefly in his amazing interview with Joe at times. And we can get into PSYOPs. And again, I think it'll be enlightening for the audience. And we can get into your information research that you uncovered on the extraction removal operation. And I'll talk about it too. And I'll praise you, dude, for discussing that and for admitting that you still to this day sink your teeth apparently more into that WITSEC angle, that some or more of these students are protected in the Witness Protection Program, that Federal Witness Protection Security Program in the United States. WITSEC, baby. Okay? So think about it, Birdie. I hope you listen to this live. I hope some of you, my friends, will share this over to Birdie and or tell him what I am saying about him, that I'm asking, still compelling him, asking him, please give me a chance, dude. Get me on your show. I know you're doing amazing interviews once a week with Devil's Advocates, Lee, and that's fantastic. Keep it up, guys. And I'm proud of you, Lee. But hopefully I'll also get an opportunity at least once or twice to be on Birdie's show. And we can knock it out of the park too. Devil's Advocates is knocking it out of the park, of course. So, yeah, again, Katsumojo, exactly. Devil's Advocates got real cock swagger. And 1-1 and Joe, in their own way, they do too. But I'll tell you, this Lee he's one witty guy. And I like Joe's wittiness as well at times. And 1-1's got his own great sense of humor too. So I'm having a blast with these guys. And Robin, co-producer, the beautiful Robin, having a blast with her. She's been very helpful and supportive too. Thank you to all of you. And I look forward to maybe I'll be on the live tonight at 9 if I'm not too tired. I'm got a little bit of a cold, so I might need to go to bed early. But guys and gals, join Devil's Advocates tonight if you have time. If not doing too much, 9 p.m. tonight. He'll go live. That's 9 p.m. Eastern my time, but 9 p.m. his time in Texas there. Or no, yeah, he's going to film from Moscow, Idaho this time, my friends. You'll learn all about it. Him and Joe, they're going to be at the crime scene or near the crime scene, so-called crime scene, but Moscow, Idaho, and they're going to film, try to do a live. So try to join them, my friends. And again, support Devil's Advocates. All right. And this may not be just the only live that I'll be pumping up, my friend Lee, DA, Devil's Advocates, because he deserves, I think, all the praise and from others that he's getting. He's got a great thing going, great channel. And I'm so honored and privileged that he asked me to be a part of it. I'm glad I've accepted, and I'm glad to have met 1-1 and Joe, at least online. I haven't met them in person yet, but nor have I met Lee in person, but that's okay. Maybe one day we will all get together too in person. But feels like I've met them. Feels like I've known these guys and gals for a long time. Same with you, Robin. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. Mama, sorry if I've missed some comments and people. Bye, guys. Have a good night. That's from Lisa Hedrick. Thank you, Lisa. And Mama says, email Birdie and get it set up. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. Well, Mama, I've emailed Birdie. We've emailed back and forth. I have his emails. But he backed out on me at least 2 times, if not 3 times. We'll just say maybe twice. Give him the benefit of the doubt, it was just twice. But I understand in retrospect more now that I can understand some of his reservations that maybe he felt at the time he needed to back out. So, and I apologize to Birdie. I'll apologize again. I said one word. I don't think it was a swear word. It was a strong word, and it wasn't favorable to Birdie. And it was just my frustration expressing it to him. I apologize, Birdie. I want to take it back, dude. I'm trying to show some intellectual integrity and honesty. Dude, I hope you can show some forgiveness in your heart, dude. You know we're in this together. Come on. And allow me to be together with you on your platform, dude. Discuss the same case. IDAHO4, man. Dude, I'll be praising you. Not that you need even more praise. You got a lot of supporters, rightly so. But I think we can knock it out of the park, man. Let me talk about PSYOPs if you don't mind, dude. Psychological operations, man. Unless you want to talk about other issues with IDAHO4, we could do that. But whatever you want to discuss, man, I'm up for it. Okay. And want to be on your platform too, Birdie. Anyway, thank you. But right now, since Birdie hasn't had me on his show, Devil's Advocate is number 1. And for a lot of reasons. Number 1, true crime channel, in my opinion. There's a lot of other good, great true crime channels out there. Don't get me wrong. You guys can make up your mind who you like the most. And, everybody has different opinions, right? And different flavors. I get it. A lot of you enjoy Paz videos and or entertainment. That's fine. But just be careful with some of these guys who don't interview other people, in my opinion. Things like that. But, Birdie, if he interviewed me, Birdie might just, I might just rate Birdie right there along with Devil's Advocates. They'll both be number 1 in my books because they're doing great work. And I'd have to, because any friend of Lee, Devil's Advocates, is a friend of mine, right? Birdie, to his credit, has Devil's Advocates on his show. They've been doing an ongoing thing once a week and doing really entertaining, great videos and informative videos, particularly on the IDAHO4 case. So keep it going, guys. And I appreciate Lee, Devil's Advocates. He hasn't tried to get in the way of me trying to reach out to Birdie and get on his platform. The Devil's Advocates seems like he supported me in trying to get on his show too. So thank you, each and every one of you, supporting me in that. Mama, in particular, leaving that comment, because I really would like to be on Birdie's show and see what we could do, what we can accomplish. That's all. Anyway, thank you again, Devil's Advocates. I love you, man. You got real. I can't believe I'm saying it in this way. I said love you, then I'm going to say you got real cock swagger. But no, seriously, Devil's Advocates, you've shown courage, balls. You've got, you're witty, and yeah, you do. You got cock swagger. You've shown it, man. You're the Devil's Advocates, dude. Check out his graphics, man. Amanda, thank you so much. We thank you for doing great graphics thus far. Keep it up. And I think you helped Birdie out too. That's awesome. You're very creative, you're a genius, creative genius, very artistic too. Thank you. I'm starting to ramble, am I now? I don't know. But thanks, everyone. Appreciate being here. Hope you subscribe to my channel, ESTEY'S Crime Maze. I'm going to try to end this live now. Take care, everyone. And by the way, feel free to tell me what country you're from in ongoing lives, what time it is if you want, where you are, all that good stuff, anything you want to share. And thanks for being here. And we'll do more lives in the future very soon, my friends. And we're going to discuss Charlie Kirk. We'll discuss Luigi Mangione, Rex Humerman, possibly. I want to discuss eventually the John Benet Ramsey case, hopefully with Devil's Advocates, maybe on his show too at one point, or him on my show, etc. So a lot to look forward to, folks, right? And I know other YouTube creators are doing some amazing work too, on these cases. So it's great. And Devil's Advocates, folks, check them out because you'll be covering these cases, hopefully a lot of times with me as one of the guests too, with 1-1, Joe, and Robin. So thanks, everyone. We're covering these cases. Bye. I'm Jason. See you. ESTEY'S Crime Maze. See you. Did we end yet or not? Sorry, folks. We're ending. Have an amazing, beautiful day, morning, evening, wherever you are.